Welcome to another segment of The Art of Light and Color by Leslie Ohnstad. I'm Leslie Ohnstad, the creator of the Color Art paint products. And today we're going to do some frosting, basically, stippling on glass eggs and then doing some dot art. And by laying down the vivid clear enamel mixed with some of the primer elements, we're basically making our own paint. We're going to get a frosted glass look. It'll look semi-opaque in one angle, but you'll actually still see a little light through it from another. I'm starting with three colors. I'm mixing some French Lilac, Royal Orchid, and Snapdragon because I'm going to be layering the colors on our glass ornaments. So several years ago, I had these glass ornaments custom made. Um, and while I was licensing my product, by the way, licensing is renting, not selling, I had them in storage. And this past year, very wonderful customer purchased a bulk of them from me so we could move. And so we're going to have to give you directions on how to find them. So here are the hearts. They come in 4 pack. They're individually wrapped in their own little bubble wrap bag with a hanger. The heart is 4 3/4 by 4 3/4. We're also going to be working with eggs that are 5 3/4 inch long. I'm spooning on the French lilac on my plate. And by the way, this is my first attempt at this. When we get to part two of the video, you'll see I was a little bit more lax. These are some really interesting stipple brushes by a lady by the name of Tracy Murray. Notice that the ends are not flat. They have that section that comes out, which is really great for stippling the paint on. And like I said, I started using this paper plate, but by the time I get further along, you're going to see me dipping right out of the cup. But, at first it was like the glass is slippery. How am I going to get a grip on this thing? I had the little bowl underneath it to rest it at first, which will come in handy when it comes to the dotting phase. But it wasn't really necessary when sponging on the layers of color. Now, primary elements are rich water-soluble color mixed with micas. This French lilac sort of it's a pale value. I wouldn't actually call it a blue violet. It's still kind of a middle of the road violet, but very, very pale and transparent. Now, if you notice, I'm checking the heat on my heat gun. This is a heat gun that gives you cool and warm air. I am using the cool air setting. I don't want to cook the paint, I just want to dry the paint. Okay, now I'm working on the reverse side. At this point, you can see I'm starting to get a little bit more confident. One trick I can tell you is pick a spot for your fingers to hold it and kind of try not to move it, not to move your fingers. Move the ornament around. Gives you a little bit better control in stippling. You can see how pretty and shimmery they are already. So I did the base coat on one side of all four hearts. And now we're going to do an egg. These are 4 3/4 inch long. 5 3/4 inch long, almost 6 inches. And the shape of the egg works perfect with the salsa cup because you can rest the hood or the tip in the salsa cup as a great holder. Okay, at this point I was experimenting with rubbing just a little bit of interference violet on, burnishing layer one to see what it looked like. It really was a nice effect. But I went ahead and I started stippling the Snapdragon on. Now, by doing them in three thin layers and stippling, you're actually going to see color through color through color. Our colors are semi-transparent. The glass is completely transparent. Notice I'm figuring out where I can get a grip on that thing because now I'm getting brave enough to do both sides. I'm not waiting for one side to dry and then the other. But the color through color through color makes it very interesting. And in video two, there is a part two to this. Uh, I managed to put a flashlight from up underneath, and you can see the light still through the ornaments, even once they have all three layers on. Okay, now time for color number three, which is Royal Orchid. Now it's more of a red violet. You can see in the picture how the warmer violet is laying on cross on top of the Snapdragon. Here's a close-up of the one side done, and we're going to flip it over and do a close-up on the other side so you can see it. That texture adds some really great depth and dimension, and you're not stuck with feeling like you need to have perfect paint strokes. There are no paint strokes when you're stippling. Going to do layer three on my egg. I absolutely love the bristles of that brush. I think this is a perfect stipple brush for working on these ornaments. I'll do my very best to try to find a link for this for you. But any kind of flat tipped or horsehair brush or a little bit coarser bristle will work really well with this technique. Remember to dry it with cool air. If I feel like I need to add a little bit more on, I am. I'm going around and just double checking for any areas I might have missed. Okay, so this was another experiment. I took Stargazer and started burnishing it basically on top of that third layer, rubbing it on and kind of rubbing it in that texture. Now, if you just dried the ornament, even though it feels dry to the touch, the enamel is still setting up a little bit and will grab onto the primary elements. Stargazer, any color that's light like this, it'll rub in. Now, Stargazer is a blue violet, but it's in an interference green base, which really gives an abalone shell effect. And I just kind of rubbed it all over the heart. And definitely for this technique, you're going to want to have gloves on, obviously. Now, I decided to do one more layer of the Royal Orchid on top of that burnished area, but that's okay. All that burnished Stargazer and all the other colors underneath are still going to come through because stippling is not painting a solid coat. It's adding another layer of textured color. I am in love with how these primary elements are looking on the glass. They're just stunning. Incidentally, we had these ornaments custom made in 2006. And when I licensed, I think I started to tell you this earlier, I had to put them in storage for a few years. And they're just beautiful. Okay, now it's time to start dotting our colors. So I've already pre-mixed up some Guatemalan green. I've pre-mixed some of the golden diamond and pre-mixed some of my key lime. I'm now taking a watercolor pencil because watercolor pencil I can use a Q-tip and just wipe off with water when I'm done with my marking lines. If you can see by the texture, you can see the darker and lighter texture and how those colors got stippled on. Now this is my very first attempt at dotting, so I'm going to kind of tell you don't do what I do, do what I'm about to say to you. Because after doing this piece and then my second piece, which you will see in part two of this video, I learned to be a little bit more confident about my dots. If you notice in these, I know I sped the video up, but I'm dotting and then I'm trying to fix it to make it more round or to adjust its shape, which is what you're used to doing in regular painting. But in dot art, you need to be confident. You need to pick up the paint and go straight down. And if you're going to add more because you think it's not a solid enough drop, pick up more color and go straight down. In this first video, when I was doing the editing, I noticed, especially right here, see where I'm turning and try to fix it? I'm trying to make the dots a little bit rounder. Wrong, wrong, wrong. You don't want to do that. Even though this piece turned out okay, not bad for my very first attempt, it's not exactly how you're supposed to do the proper dotting style. This first color I'm putting down is Golden Diamond. Golden Diamond is one of the new colors that have been released into the primary element line. They're part of the ground metal colors that until we started making the resin art line, we were unable to actually offer to the public, but the mixing agent that we use in the resin art dampens down the metal enough to where the metal, ground metal, does not become airborne. That doesn't mean you shouldn't wear a mask like you normally do when you're working with micas, but the ground metal becomes instantly airborne as the jar is opened up. So it's very exciting to be able to offer you guys 6 new ground metal colors. Part two, I'll be introducing the color names. You'll be able to see the type of jar they're coming in. But I wanted to mention that's what that gold is if you've never seen it in the line yet. Golden Diamond. This next color is Guatemalan green. Now this is my first attempt of using the flat plastic tool. Your dotting tools can either come with a round metal tip or just a flat plastic, which helps you make a nice clean round dot. And if you've ever painted, like I said, your instinct is, oh, I got to fix the dot. Let me make that one dot a little bit fatter. No, I went and watched some videos. I think her name Sweet Willow Design. She's really good at this particular technique, as is also Petra Youngblood, who's been doing some dotting work lately and mandalas on her YouTube channel. You need to be in control, believe in your dots, be confident in your dots, pick up that paint and go straight down on top of it. Now you can see I'm measuring which size I should be putting my next dot in. But see how I'm sitting there trying to fix the thing? You can put a second dot on top of the first dot, just go straight down. But I think a little bit further in here, I try to make those round dots a little bit bigger by swerving them around, which again, wrong thing to do. Now, if you make a mistake, you can wipe it right off, Most of your dotting tools come with a little, the metal ones that have the little metal hoods on them have like a little wedge on the other end. That's really helpful to remove stuff. But those dots turned out way faster, way bigger than I wanted them because I kept trying to fix them. Okay, so I think I've got a close up of this technique in a few minutes, but I believe she called this like walking the dog. And what you do is you take your dotting tool, go to the very center, and do a dot, right, dot, 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 dot up the right hand side, and then go dot, dot, dot up the left hand side. But always go to that center dot. Go back to the center dot. I know this is sped up a little bit, but I believe right here, we're going to get a close up in a minute so you can see this. Here we go. So what you want to do is that center dot and then walk it up to the left, walk it up to the right. But when you walk it up, center, see one, two, three up one side, then I'm going to go back to the center again and go up to the other side. You hit that center point twice. And I think that to me, it was just the confidence of knowing where was my balance and how much area did I have to work in. I got to tell you, the primary elements in that vivid enamel are just gorgeous. That color is so shimmery. Of course, that's one thing. Enamel loves glass. It also works really well on metal. So you're not just stuck with canvas or paper. At this point, it looked like there was a gap between where my big old gold dot was and the little ones on top, so I filled them in. Okay, so now for the key lime. At this point, I'm getting a little bit more confident with my plastic dauber. That's the one that has the flat edge to it. And go around, touch up the same dot, but by doing that, you're going straight down on it. I know I've said that two or three times, but I cannot stress that enough. When you see the second ornament that I did, I was pretty proud of the fact that my work seemed more spaced and centered once I really learned that valuable little tip. Okay, so now we're going to do some more of the walk the dog. Makes such pretty lacing. I love these patterns. See that little wedge where I cleaned that up because it was just a little bit too fat. So the key lime looked like it was a little bit too soft on there, so I was touching up that key lime just so I got that lime green color coming through. Remember, our colors are semi-transparent. If you notice those little green dots on the top of the gold, that was the Guatemalan green, and it looked like a Kelly green come through. In hindsight, I might have put Guatemalan green down and gold on top because the gold's going to sit on the surface like a big old mirror. Okay, so now I'm adding some more Guatemalan green, getting a little bit braver here, going further and further down. And some more of my key lime lacing, walking the dog a little bit more. I got to tell you, that's after you get comfortable with that, it's a lot of fun doing the little loopy lacing. I'm sure there's a much more technical term for that. So at this point, the Guatemalan green dot looked a little bit kind of lonely. So I added two more Guatemalan green dots on either side of the one big dot that I did. I mean, the pattern will just kind of come to you. There are some stencil patterns that you can buy that will give you some suggestions. There are some really great dot artists out on YouTube that you can look up and watch their patterns. So here I wanted to do that little gold loop under my three Guatemalan green drops. And I putting little lime green dots on top of those Guatemalan green dots to enhance that. So here's a close up of my piece. I put in some like a dark rose crystal and some topaz yellow crystals on there to make it a little bit more interesting. I hope you guys have enjoyed this and stay tuned for part two. I'm going to do some hearts and some iridescence and some blue and some turquoise, and I'm going to do more dot art. Thank you for joining us, and please like and subscribe and share. Bye bye.